Before we remove negative entity attachments, shouldn't we know if the individual actually has one? Demonic entities and negative spirit attachments can latch themselves onto a host, just like any animal parasite. However, instead of putting down roots in your digestive system, under your skin, or even inside your brain, they attach themselves to your energy field. But what is an energy field? The field of nursing recognizes the human energy field as a luminous field of energy that comprises the whole person. It also extends beyond the physical body, and it is in continuous mutual process with the environmental energy field. It is dynamic, creative, nonlinear, unpredictable, and flows in lower and higher frequencies. Metaphysics explains the energy field, also called an aura, as a force of energy that extends outside of your physical form, surrounding you. Everyone's aura is different, and it changes based on the individual's current emotion, energetic influence, or life experience. There are 7 major chakras or energy centers found in the human energy field, and these chakras dictate much of the field's energetic makeup at any one time. For 5,000 years, chakra theory explained that living beings are energy. And only recently, with Einstein's theory of relativity and the power of electron microscopes, did science accept that humans are waves and particles, which means that we exist in the quantum field as energy. A person's energy and life force flows through the chakras. Blockages in the chakras prevent the flow, and this will manifest in many different ways. Physical maladies, mood problems, and mental disruptions can all be attributed to blockages, and those blockages are often caused by unprocessed, unresolved, and unreleased emotions. Entities, implants, cords, and psychic attacks are more effective when blockages exist. These blockages act as entrances or anchor points in a person's energy field. When an individual's energy field is clear of blockages, then the field is difficult to access from outside influences. While this explains how astral parasites are able to attach themselves to an individual, the question is, how does someone know whether their symptoms and suffering come from a demonic attachment? When people first experience the presence of an astral visitor, they often begin with the question, "Am I going insane?" This is a common response in a society that does not believe such things are possible. Western medicine does not allow for the possibility of speaking to extra-dimensional beings or even one's own intuition. Overcoming this obstacle can be challenging for people who feel that they have nobody to talk to about what they are experiencing. The idea of being sent to a mental institution is not only terrifying, but unhelpful. Because having a spirit entity is not accepted by the mainstream, finding qualified professional help can be a challenge. That's why it's important to identify the source of the issue to make sure that any action taken is the correct action. The at-home identification process comes from evaluating the symptoms, checking against your own intuition, and using identification techniques. Let's break the symptoms down into 2 categories: the most telling and the least telling. The most telling symptoms of a negative entity attachment are as follows. The feeling of a presence, like there is someone in the room with you or someone is listening to your thoughts. Hearing a voice inside your head which resembles your own thoughts but has some difference. A different tone. It uses words that you normally wouldn't use. It has an emotional slant that is outside of the emotion you are currently experiencing. Perhaps it's especially negative, especially kind or warm, or teasing you. It uses your name or refers to you as a separate entity than your own brain. It impersonates a helpful entity like Archangel Michael to gain your trust. More on this in part 3. Physical touching sensations even though there is nobody physically present. You might feel fingers, painful touch like claws, or even sexual manipulation. This often happens at night. Objects in the vicinity moving on their own accord, shaking or rattling. Seeing images that are not there and are uncharacteristic, especially negative, horrific imagery. Family members experiencing the same or similar sightings or symptoms. While these symptoms are obvious, they aren't common. In my practice, individuals with symptoms in this category only comprise about 20 to 25% of those who have evil spirit attachments. However, should an individual express any of these symptoms, they almost certainly have one. Outside of this, negative entity detection can be problematic because entities can cause almost any symptom imaginable. However, there are a number of symptoms that are more commonly cited by victims of spirit attachments, even though they are less telling than the first group. This list of less telling symptoms goes from most reported to least reported. Sleep disruption and sleep paralysis. Chronic fatigue and lack of energy. Mental fogginess and lack of clarity, which includes poor memory and concentration. Your behavior doesn't feel like you. Feeling extreme emotions for no apparent reason. This includes anxiety and panic attacks. Depression and/or mood swings. Irrational fears, phobias, or obsessions. Problems with relationships. Unexplained health conditions or the sudden onset of chronic pain. Addictions. Animals in the household behaving differently. Being extra fearful or aggressive. Suicidal thoughts. Constantly feeling cold. Being avoided by others. If an individual is experiencing many of these symptoms, then they may be infected with an unwanted entity or other spiritual influence. In my practice, brand new symptoms are reported quite frequently, which shows that almost any symptom is possible. How can you detect a spiritual influence? If your symptoms are not in the most telling category, then you will want to use an additional method to determine if you have one. These methods include asking a healer or practitioner. This can have its own set of problems. If they want your business, they may tell you that you have an entity so that you'll use their services. You'll want to find a trusted source or sources so you can triangulate an accurate answer. Another method is using kinesiology or muscle testing to ask if you have one or not. It is important to note that negative entities generally want you to know that they are present. This causes fear in their victims, which makes it easier for them to stay attached. So they're unlikely to cause you to get a false negative answer. They want you to be afraid of them. Another way to do this is by using a pendulum. Similar to muscle testing, a pendulum is more likely to give an unbiased answer. Unfortunately, there is no scientific method to determine if an individual has an astral parasite or other spiritual infection. A combination of intuition, reliable external diagnosis, and at-home testing must be used to find out for sure. It is also important to note that while it can satisfy curiosity to know whether an entity is the cause of suffering, it doesn't really change the actions that must be taken to relieve the suffering or remove the entity. Releasing stored emotions, repairing the energy field, and removing blockages are huge steps in the process of removing negative entity attachments. Taking these steps will always improve mental health, emotional health, and spiritual health, which will begin to clear or prevent negative entity attachments, cords, implants, or any other negative spiritual influence from getting worse or attaching in the first place. Thank you for watching part 2 of the 5-part negative entity series. In part 3, we will discuss types of entities. What type of negative attachment do you have? And are there different approaches depending on the result?